I recently reviewed the UWANT D700, which is a wet and dry vacuum with a unique D-shaped roller. And today we're going to pit it against wet and dry vacuums from the 3 top contenders in the market. Let's find out more. Before we start, a quick disclaimer: UWANT did actually sponsor this comparison review. However, and this is a very important point, I had very strict conditions to accept this collaboration, which were they would have absolutely no interference, no editorial input, no nothing on what I'm about to say. I was very clear. The only way I would accept this being a sponsored review is if I have full, complete freedom to test these and share my objective thoughts and opinions on all 3 wet and dry vacuums. And this is what happened. They gladly accepted my terms, even if it means they don't come out on top. So again, despite this being sponsored, and I know there's a lot of skepticism around that, they had absolutely no input. They haven't seen any script. They're actually seeing this video at the same time you guys are. With that out of the way, let me tell you how I'm going to structure this video. I'm not going to compare specifically the specs of one over the other, though I will show you a table to see how these specs compare. But rather, I'm going to focus on firsthand experience using these machines and how they compare to each other. And the way I'm going to do that, I'm going to split the video into 4 parts. The first one's going to be the cleaning performance, arguably the most important metric in a wet and dry vacuum cleaner. And I actually did cleaning tests with all 4. So I'm going to show you guys the results of those cleaning tests. Second thing I'm going to talk about is the ease of use and the user experience, so how it feels like using those machines. Third thing, I'm going to talk about the features and how those compare. And lastly, I'm going to talk about maintenance, or how easy or not it is with all 4. And of course, I'll conclude with my thoughts and my recommendation. So let's get started with the cleaning tests.
My first test is the standard ketchup test that I do. This is a stain dried over 12 hours, and ketchup dried over 12 hours is a very tough stain. Most wet and dry vacuums struggle with that. As you can see, the UWANT has a clear advantage. It gets most of the ketchup out in 4 or 5 passes, followed by the Dreame, and then the Roborock finishes earlier, and then in last place is a Tineco, which takes a bit more time to get all of the ketchup out. Next up is a fresh ketchup stain, and all machines perform equally well. From the first pass, they get all of the ketchup out. Next up is a dried coffee test, again over 12 hours, and again, all machines performed equally well in removing that stain from the first pass. However, this is where we see the edge cleaning performance, and there's a clear advantage for UWANT, which comes ridiculously close to the edge, followed by Tineco and Roborock, and in last place, Dreame, which was not too close to the edge. Another major advantage of the UWANT is the D-shaped roller, which can actually clean your walls or sideboards. And as you can see, I scribbled on a wall, and from the first pass, it got all of that out. And none of the other machines in the market can actually do that. And then the solid pickup test, again from the first pass, all of them performed equally well. However, this is where we see the advantages in the built-in filter that catches the solid debris. They all have that filter, which is great to see. However, Roborock and Tineco have larger slits, which sometimes causes the solid to fall through. The filter on the UWANT was smaller, so it could catch less. However, it did a good job at catching all of them. Dreame, on the other hand, while it did not have the best filter per se, I really like their design. It looks like a tray, which means you can actually pour the entire contents of the dirty water tank into it, and it will catch all the solids. And this is what these brush rolls look like after all of these tests. You can see there's slight discoloration due to the ketchup. The Dreame looks the worst, followed by Tineco, and then Roborock and the UWANT look better. After the cleaning session, this is what they looked like. Again, Dreame is in last place, followed by Tineco, while the Roborock and the UWANT did a good job at cleaning the brush roll. After the brush cleaning, the drying session, Tineco is the only one that only has a loud drying session at around 60 decibels. Dreame and Roborock give you both options, a loud 5-minute one, which is around 60 to 62 decibels, or a quiet one, while UWANT only has a quiet one, which is almost as quiet as that of Dreame's. However, while on paper, the Dreame looks to be the best option because it gives you both a quiet and long drying mode or a fast and loud one. However, I do have an issue in how Dreame decided to approach this. Unlike most wet and dry vacuums, you cannot press a button on the machine itself to trigger the drying of the brush roll, but rather you need to go through the app and multiple screens to get that, which I'm not a fan of.
So to conclude that segment, they all did a good job, but there was a clear advantage with the UWANT D700, and that's because of the unique D-shaped roller, which not only gives it the unique ability to clean baseboards and walls, but it has significantly more surface area, more contact with the floor, which means it cleans better or faster than the traditional wet and dry vacuums that have a much smaller surface area in contact with the floor. UWANT actually shows this on their website as having 6 times more surface area. I haven't quantified that to check the claim, but as you saw, it does clean better and faster than the competitors, and the edge cleaning is also better than the rest, which gives it a clear win, in my opinion, in the cleaning performance. So now let's talk about how easy it is to use these machines. And there's a lot of factors that contribute to how easy or not it is. There's the weight of the machines. There's also the perceived weight, which is different than the weight, because in certain machines you have the water tank at the base, which means a lower center of gravity. So despite the weight being the same, it is easier to maneuver it. There's also the presence or lack thereof of motorized wheels, which help propel the machine forward and backward. And in the case of the UWANT D700, there's that unique handle that they have, which I talked about extensively in the dedicated review of the D700. And when you declick that handle, it makes the perceived weight of the machine much less. It makes a strain on your hands much less. It feels much lighter than it actually is. And that's, again, a unique thing that UWANT has. So let's talk about how they compare. I'm going to start my ranking by putting in Dreame comfortably in the final position. It is the heaviest of the bunch at 5.7 kilograms. So it's over a kilogram heavier than the rest. And it shows. You can easily feel that despite it having motorized wheels. Moving it around does feel heavier, noticeably heavier than the rest. So I'm going to put Dreame in the last position. That leaves us with the Tineco, the Roborock, and the UWANT. Out of these three, the Roborock is the only one that has motorized wheels. And by the way, these are one of the best that I've tested, if not the best, if any wet and dry vacuum cleaner. They just work perfectly well in both the pushing and pulling motion. The F25 is also lightweight. It has a lower center of gravity thanks to the water tank at the base, and the head pivots quite well. So all in all, I would comfortably put the Roborock F25 in first place for ease of use and maneuverability. That leaves the Tineco and the D700 from UWANT, both of which don't have motorized wheels, but rather rely on the rotating brush roll to propel the machine. Now, the Tineco is a slightly lighter and has a head that pivots more than the D700. So in that area, it has a slight edge. However, there are two unique features of the D700, which in my opinion would place the UWANT D700 in second place over the Tineco. The first one is the handle, which makes it much easier to use the machine, and you feel significantly less strain on your hands moving around. And the second thing is the push-in base. So with all the others, to put the machine back on the base, you have to lift it off and drop it in its base, whereas the UWANT D700 has a unique base where you can actually drive the machine onto the base, as you can see. So you simply push it onto the base and lock the handle and it's good to go, which gives it a clear advantage over the others. So to recap that section, I'll put the Roborock in first place, the UWANT D700 in second place, Tineco in third, and last the heavier Dreame H14 Pro. Now let's move on to features. Now I did show you guys a table comparing the features at the beginning of the review. I'm going to put it again on the screen for you to get an idea of how they compare features wise. So as you can see, the Roborock and the Dreame are the only ones that have an auto solution dispensing tank, which I think is quite important and nice to have. Instead of manually having to dose in the cleaning solution in the clean water tank, you just fill the small reservoir and it automatically doses in the right amount as it is cleaning. The Dreame and the UWANT are the only ones that have electrolyzed water, so they clean with electrolyzed water. The UWANT has a deodorizer in the dirty water tank, which helps neutralize odors. In terms of cleaning modes, the Tineco and the Dreame have 4 cleaning modes. That's the auto mode, the max or turbo mode, the suction or dry mode, and a custom mode. Whereas the Roborock and the UWANT only have 3 modes. That's the auto mode, an eco mode, and the sponge or dry mode. It's worth mentioning though that despite all 4 of them having a dry or suction only mode, only the UWANT and the Dreame have true suction mode. That means there's absolutely no water being dispensed on the brush roll in the dry or suction mode. Whereas with the Roborock and the Tineco, despite them having a dry mode, there is a little bit of water still being dispensed on the roller brush in that mode, which means if you plan on using this on carpets, I wouldn't recommend it because it's not meant to be used on carpets. It's something to keep in mind that the UWANT and the Dreame are that have actual dry suction mode. And then all of the machines clean the brush roll with hot water, dry the brush roll with hot air. So they do that at different temperatures, but I'm not gonna dwell that much on that part because I think in practice it matters less than it does on paper. For example, they all advertise hot water cleaning of the brush roll. And while in theory, cleaning at 100 degrees Celsius water is better than cleaning at 70 degrees Celsius water, the reality is it's not actual hot water, but rather either hot air or a hot plate rotating as a brush roll, which in my opinion makes less of an actual difference. So in terms of features, I guess it depends on what features matter most to you. I'll put that table again on the screen so you can take a look at how they compare. But let me move on to the last part, which is maintenance and how easy it is to maintain. And in that part, I'm going to talk about a couple things. Firstly, the self-cleaning and self-drying of the brush roll. And here there's a bit of difference. So as I said earlier, Tineco is the only one that only has a quick 5-minute drying session, which is rather loud. Roborock and Dreame give you the option of either a loud or a quiet one, which is great. And the UWANT only has a silent drying session. Now, the Roborock has an advantage in that it gives you the option to either do a fast or a quiet, slow drying mode. The quiet mode is louder than that of UWANT, but it only lasts 30 minutes, whereas UWANT lasts 1 hour. Although if I was to choose between the two, I would prefer the UWANT mode at 1 hour versus the Roborock's at 30, just because with the Roborock, despite it being just a few decibels more, you can actually hear it. So if you're in the same room, it is a bit annoying, whereas with UWANT, it's barely audible. So personally, I would prefer a longer drying mode that is inaudible over a shorter one that is audible. In terms of the self-cleaning session, both Roborock and UWANT, as you saw in the tests, did a great job, followed by Tineco and Dreame, which were less effective at cleaning the brush roll. Again, another advantage in favor of UWANT is the fact that the base is removable, so you can actually remove it to clean it under running water. But also, it's the only one that has a waterproof motor. The motor actually tilts at 45 degrees and you can actually clean it with water, which again gives it an advantage in maintenance. In terms of the filter in the dirty water tank, Roborock and Tineco come in last because they have larger slits that cause some of the solid that is collected to drop into the water tank, thus by negating the whole point of having a filter. UWANT has a pretty decent filter, although it's on the smaller side, so it cannot hold a lot of solid debris. And Dreame, in my opinion, has the best designed one because it's designed like a tray, so you can actually pour the content as we saw into it. So each of the four has advantages and disadvantages in one area or the other. If I was to rank them, I think I would put UWANT in first place, followed very closely by Roborock. And the reason it's a close win for UWANT is that removable base and waterproof brush motor, which makes maintenance easier, along with a better solid debris filter than Roborock and the deodorizer in the water tank. In second place is Roborock because it did a fairly good job at cleaning the brush roll, and the brush drying has both a silent and a loud option. And in third place, I would put Dreame. I think it had very similar performance cleaning the brush roll to Tineco, but at least we have the option to dry the brush roll silently, despite us having to go through the app to do that. At least we have that option. And then in fourth place, I would put the Tineco S6 Stretch. So at this point, I think we spend a lot of time talking about how all four compare to each other. And you're probably thinking there isn't a clear winner because each machine has its pros and its cons. And I might have even confused you more by inconsistently picking different winners in each of the categories, which is very fair. So what are my final thoughts? And of course, that's not a black and white or easy answer, but I can comfortably put the Dreame H14 Pro in last place just because, and I said all those in the dedicated review I did on the Dreame, it has a lot of features that are good on paper, but in practice I wasn't very happy in the execution. So out of the four, it is my least favorite and I can comfortably put it in fourth place. In third place, I would put the Tineco. It's a good machine, but both the Roborock and the UWANT D700 or easily better, so my process of elimination Tineco is in third place. Which brings me to first and second, and this is where it gets a bit trickier. That's between the Roborock and the UWANT. Pure cleaning performance, the UWANT takes a clear edge. It is much faster and more effective in cleaning than the Roborock, and it has the unique advantage of being able to clean baseboards and walls. So if we're looking purely at cleaning performance, I would go with the UWANT. However, I would not discount the Roborock yet. It's still a capable machine, and the ease of use and the maneuverability of it and the features, I think, are better than UWANT. The self-propelled wheels are amongst the best I've tried, and the head pivots significantly well, much more than the D700. It also has a auto solution tank, which is great. So in terms of features, I would give the edge to the Roborock F25. But then the UWANT also has its own set of unique features with the push-in base, which makes it much more convenient, and the zero gravity handle, which makes moving it easier, and the waterproof brush motor and the removable base, both of which can be cleaned under running water. And this is why it gets trickier to pick an absolute winner, because it really depends on what you're looking for. So I guess I'll end with, if you're looking for the absolute best cleaning performance and ease of maintenance, I'd go with the UWANT D700. But if you're looking for more features and an easier to maneuver and move around machine, then I would pick the Roborock F25 Alt. That is it for me. I hope this review was helpful in helping you make a purchase decision if you're considering purchasing a wet and dry vacuum amongst these 4 contenders. If you do decide to purchase one, I would appreciate if you would go through the links that I will put in the description. These are affiliate links, so I may earn a small commission and absolutely no extra cost to you, but this will greatly help support the channel. Thanks for watching. If you liked the video, please hit the like button and consider subscribing to my channel, as this encourages me to continue producing content. Until next time, cheers.